my request, I'm going to look at a Superheavy Samurai deck again. So let's jump right into it. Starting from the top, I run 3 copies of Thief. For the most part, this guy is basically a monster version of MST, because while it can steal an opponent's back row, this theft is unlikely because Thief is not quick play. That's not to say that once in a while you won't be able to steal something, but in large respects, don't really count on it, just treat it as an MST. However, Thief is useful enough for dealing with back row. It's also nice summons cost fodder for another card that I run in this deck, and it's a possible 1000 damage with Big Ben on the field. It is important to pay attention to the conditions associated with its effect, though, especially the can only special summon super heavy samurai monsters for the remainder of the turn condition. Otherwise, you might make some mistakes in your plays. I run 2 copies of Gameciel, largely for dealing with masterpieces and monsters that cannot be destroyed by battle. The reason I only run 2 copies is that I don't run Slumber because its no banish on its graveyard turn condition can really interfere with some of the explosiveness of this deck, and there are a number of less than optimal cards in this deck without the right combo piece. In my experience, more copies of Kaijus can create very bad brick hands. I run 2 copies of Big Ben as the Goldilocks number for 1 copy is too restrictive, either you draw him or he gets banished and no more Big Ben, and 3 copies comes off as a little too bricky. Big Ben is the principal victory condition for the TCG build with its 3500 body and attack thanks to its effect, along with allowing all other super heavy samurai monsters to attack while in defense position. One of the best forgotten cards in the game, I like running 3 copies of Machina or Machina Fortress. Fortress is a 2500 attacker that will commonly either strip 1 card from the opponent's hand of the Fortress controller's choosing, and also providing important information because you get to see your opponent's hand, and derail playmaking in a sense because you have that information and you get to dump the most important card to that playmaking, or it will destroy any card on your opponent's field because Fortress has just been removed via battle. There are numerous ways to summon it from the hand or the graveyard. Fortress provides a secondary victory condition apart from Big Ben, and is especially useful when you're just not seeing your Soulpiercer or your Soulpeacemaker. I run 1 copy of Snow as a general strong staple due to its face down flip effect and its from the graveyard interruption effect. Its value is rather straightforward. I run 3 copies of both Soulpiercer and Scales, 2 of the best cards in this deck for producing both important searching and field control. Soulpiercer is super important to the tempo of this deck due to its lack of once per turn condition on its search, and the ability to search any super heavy samurai monster in the deck. Scales will commonly be the middle step before victory, summoning a Peacemaker or Piercer from the graveyard to be reused. Now, before moving on, some may question the lack of no super heavy samurai magnet. I don't like magnet in this deck because it really does not provide much value. Of the monsters it can summon, the remaining unmentioned level 4 super heavy samurai monsters are rather bad. You don't want to summon Piercer, you'd rather just equip it from the hand. And the other level 3 or lower monsters really do not receive much value after being summoned to the field. Realistically, the small level of increased field presence for the deck just doesn't seem worth the deck space. The only XZ play is commonly with Scales, and that play is not really useful enough to be worth the deck space either. I run 1 copy of Neo-Spacian Grand Mole, for this deck does not have any natural bounce, banish, or spin removal options, so when you're facing down monsters on your opponent's field that produce benefit by being destroyed, or just flat out can't be destroyed by battle, Super Heavy Samurais have a problem. Grand Mole is a nice counter to this issue, especially when bouncing a Kaiju back to your own hand. I run 1 copy of Flutist because while its graveyard targeting negation effect is rather nice, it is commonly a difficult card to use properly because it has no innate special summoning ability, thus it takes the normal summons. This deck does not have a lot of methods to dumping cards from the hand or deck to the graveyard, and by itself, Flutist is a rather pathetic monster. Unfortunately, until Musashi is released in the TCG, Its level 3 status is rather annoying due to its lack of compatibility with the other level 2 tuners. I run 2 copies of Gigagloves because it's a nice card for while in the graveyard it provides a nice attack reduction option, helping weaken an opponent's monster, as well as setting up higher damage potential. In some sense, it almost creates a game of chicken with your opponent. Well, I know they have a Gigagloves in their graveyard. Do I want to declare an attack and have my monster drop to 0 attack? Can I make a follow-up play? And it also nets him a potential free card. Most of the time, your opponent's going to be very wary about attacking when you have a Gigagloves in the graveyard. Unfortunately, Gigagloves does suffer from the same general problems as Flutist. There's not a lot of quality means to get it into the graveyard easily, and it is a level 3. I run 3 copies of Ghost Ogre for the rather obvious reasons to destroying annoying monsters, spell, and to a lesser extent trap cards, reducing the explosive capacity of the opponent's plays. I also run the one allowable copy of Maxx. As a nice tech, I like running 1 copy of Crystron Citri for summoning Superheavy Samurai Synchro monsters during the opponent's turn. This card is interesting because it puts some pressure on the opponent because of that summons chain ability during their main phase or battle phase, thus commonly resulting in the opponent either wasting a card effect or most of the time reducing the overall explosiveness of their play. However, without the proper setup, this card is not very good, hence only the 1 copy. I run 3 copies of Trumpeter, 2 copies of Battleball, and 2 copies of Drum as the Superheavy Samurai Tuner Brigade for the deck. Trumpeter is nice because of its innate special summoning method, as well as its graveyard effect for Turbulent for a Big Ben is actually not that uncommon if such a tactic is so desired. And you get to net it back, and you can use it on the Big Ben to put a Warlord on the field if necessary. Battleball is only at 2 copies because of a lack of information regarding the opponent's deck in Game 1. For if you're running against a heavy XZ deck or Masterpiece, Battleball is not as useful as it could be. Against most other decks, it's great. Finally, Drums is one of those cards that can be great for when destroyed and sent to the graveyard. You get to special summon any Super Heavy Samurai monster from the graveyard. Thus, it's good for stalling, secondary playmaking, and forcing the opponent to use Banish, Bounce, or Spin resources on Drum instead of a more impactful Super Heavy Samurai monster. For the original smaller pieces, I run 1 copy of Gauntlet, 1 copy of Horns, and 1 copy of Beads. Gauntlet is the heavy hitter of the Soul Super Heavy Samurais, which can not only buff up Big Ben to 7,000 defense when it's attacking, but can also protect various Super Heavy Samurais from destruction by battle by upping their defense. Horns is nice for the Synchro and Big Ben for big damage, normally when the opponent does not have any monsters, because you still get the double attacking versus something like having Coral in your Pendulum Zone. And Beads is nice for protecting an important Super Heavy Samurai or reviving a destroyed by battle Super Heavy Samurai to maintain field presence, especially Soulpiercer, so you can potentially get multiple searches. I run 3 copies of Peacemaker because it is rather essential and amazing for this deck. The level of versatility Peacemaker provides is incredibly important, from setting up your plays to finishing the duel. Also, its ability to produce another method for getting cards like Flutist and Gigaglove into the graveyard rather easily with Peacemaker's bonus summon any super heavy samurai you want from the deck effect is rather nice. If this card did not have a hard once per turn limit, then it would probably be completely broken. Finally, rounding out the deck, I like running 1 copy of Eater of Millions, for it's an easy special summons, because commonly there are 5 cards from your extra deck that you don't mind giving up. An Interrupter Magnet, your opponent definitely wants to get Eater of Millions off the field as fast as they can, and another means to remove monsters that does not involve destroying. Speaking of the extra deck, I run 2 copies of Warlord, 1 copy of Beast Kyubi, 2 copies of Ninja Sarutobi, 2 copies of Ninja Shinobiashi, 1 Powered Insectron, 3 copies of Ogre Shintenjoji, 1 Naturia Beast, 1 Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, for there are times when you can get 2 fortresses on the field, and it's nice to have this guy burn your opponent to death when possible, 1 Tornado Dragon, and 1 Castel the Sky Blaster Musketeer. Now, one might immediately look at the extra deck and say, where's the Gigagloves X? The simple fact is the search you get off Gigagloves X really has diminished in my eyes in a level of importance rather significantly since Peacemaker has come out. Peacemaker and Soulpiercer pretty much do the heavy lifting when it comes to searching, and giving up 2 cards to get one off Gigagloves X, and it's not a very consistent summons the way I run this deck. Usually Gigagloves X just sat in the extra deck not doing anything, versus Tornado Dragon or Castel that can come out and do good things basically immediately. In addition to Gigagloves X, there are some other cards that I choose not to run, so why not? I don't like running Transporter or Big Waraji because without Steam Fiend, their level 5 standing is awkward in synchro summoning. Transporter really could have been an interesting card as a one copy option, thanks to Peacemaker being able to search it whenever, if it didn't tribute itself when activating its on-field effect. But because it does, the ability to make significant gains off of the monsters you give your opponent is significantly reduced. I don't run Fossil Dyna because while it's a nice card going first, it also really slows the deck down, for this deck definitely likes to special summon itself. I don't like Rise to Full Height because I feel it's too slow and too inconsistent. Also, both Gauntlet and Soulhorns are searchable and basically do the same thing in their own way. While cards like Moon Mirror Shield and Breakthrough Skill are also valid options because of their ability to remove themselves from the graveyard, I feel there are better options than those 2 cards, but both can be nice side deck choices as well. In contrast to this current TCG build, when all the Superheavy Samurai cards are available from the OCG, what does that deck look like? Well, let's take a look. As one can see, the general preference seems to be a very aggressive OTK build, largely using Steam Fiend Tetsudo. With this strategy in mind, both level 5s with their innate special summoning abilities are used, and level 2 tuner capacity is maximized. Note that while 3 transporters are used, its draw effect is almost never used. Just the fact that it's a level 5 that can innately special summon itself is the valuable portion of transporter. Almost everything else is designed for searching or speed, or secondary playmaking, including the 2 copies of Helper, which protect your life points very nicely if your opponent has been able to neutralize your play. In the end, even without Steam Fiend, Daihachi, Musashi, or Helper, oof, that's a laundry list. Some Fluffle players complain about not having patchwork. I'll take a look at what Superheavy Samurais currently lack. The addition of Peacemaker has taken Superheavy Samurais to a new level of competitiveness. Obviously, the lack of spells or traps may turn some potential players off, but Super Heavy Samurais have been designed in a fairly effective way that they don't need spells or traps to win consistently. However, not surprisingly, the general tempo of this deck, whether it's in the TCG or the OCG, is quick, i.e., the goal is to end the duel as quickly as possible, because the lack of spells and traps do hurt the comeback or quote unquote momentum shifting potential of the deck. Well, that is my updated Super Heavy Samurai deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.